You probably shoot with the kit lens that came with your camera, but we think that your very next lens should be a 50mm lens, and one reason is subject separation. We're filming at f/5.6 right now. You can probably see the messy background, but with fast primes like a 50mm, you can blur the background and get beautiful separation without breaking the bank, because our sponsor KEH has an incredible array of used gear for fair prices. It's inspected, it's warranted, they have a return period, there's nothing to lose. So thank you KEH for sponsoring this video, and you can check out their inventory in the link down below. You can get 5% off when you buy from them, or if you want to sell your old gear, you can get a 5% bonus with the coupon code in the description. Thanks KEH.
Subject separation is one of the big reasons you might want a fast prime, but the other is low light performance. Right now we're in a typical low light environment, and you can see with your kit lens, you get a really pretty noisy image, even with your full frame camera. With a fast 50mm prime, Chelsea the cameraman will open it up there, and you can see just how much cleaner this image is. So now we're gonna go through all 11 autofocus lenses for the Sony system and tell you which of those you should get.
This is every autofocus 50mm lens for the Sony E-mount, including third-party lenses like Sigma and Yongnuo. It ranges from $200 to $2,000, and you don't always get what you pay for. Some of these are definitely a better value than others.
We've been meticulously testing all of these, taking thousands of pictures for over 10 different tests. Price, design and size, handling, contrast, edge sharpness, center sharpness,
close-up photos,
low light capabilities, the bokeh quality, the starburst, the AF tracking for sports, really important because this is a popular sports lens. And we have summarized all of that to give them a score from 0 to 100.
We're going to show you the most key side-by-side comparisons, but if we don't show you something and you want to see it, check the description. You'll find a spreadsheet with all of our detailed scoring information, including descriptions of our criteria, and you can download the sample files so you can do a side-by-side comparison of any two lenses yourself.
We're going to rank them from the very We're going to rank them from the very worst to the very best, starting with 11th place. Last place goes to the Sony 50mm f1.4 Zeiss lens. This is the old lens. Now, ours, the biggest problem was the sharpness. It was appalling, worse than the $200 lens we tested. And some of you in our previous test said, hey, you got a bad copy. Well, this one came from Sony via lens rentals. They checked things out pretty thoroughly, but we did hear feedback that they didn't have great quality control back in the days when they were doing this. So there might actually be good copies and bad copies. And maybe we did get a bad copy. I don't know. But regardless, even in other categories, it did not keep up with the now less expensive competition. And so I do think it deserves to mostly be forgotten, but there's a catch. If you go onto KEH, you can pick up a used copy for $900. That's a huge discount from the $1,500 new price, and you get a 21-day return period to evaluate it and see if it's one of the sharp ones. Sharpness, bad. Other qualities, only okay. It is a good general purpose lens, but we just think there's better values out there.
In 10th place, we have the Yongnuo 50mm f1.8, and it's $320, so it's pretty budget friendly. We also give it high marks for its design because look at this nice focusing ring. It's got programmable buttons. It looks pretty sleek. The center sharpness on the lens is decent, but once you get out to the corners, it's not that sharp. We also noticed that when you're shooting with backlighting, it gets kind of messy, it loses contrast. The bokeh balls are smaller than they should be with an f1.8 lens. We also noticed that the starbursts are mushy and you get flaring, so it's not that high quality when shooting into the sun.
And for sports, our best performing lens got 97 sharp shots in our test. This one got 4.
So not good for fast action, but it could be good for portraits if you're not shooting backlit, and it's $320, so.
The 9th place lens in our test is another Sony Zeiss lens. This is the Sony Zeiss 50mm f1.8, and it's kind of famous, but I feel like it's held back by its $1,000 price tag. It's old, and I think that is too much to pay.
There's nothing wrong with being old, unless you're this lens. Now, at $1,000, it's steep, but KEH has it for $440, which, come on, if you're not paying $1,000, then you can be a little more forgiving.
Yeah, if you can find a copy on KEH, grab it, because $440 is a good price. It did outperform all the third-party lenses for sports. The native lenses do much better than that. And the design, pretty good. It feels good and it's very small and light, especially compared to these bigger, heavier lenses that we're going to look at in a little bit.
People asked how the 55ZA compared to the less expensive 50 F1.8. You can see it's a little more telephoto. That's why the bokeh is a little bit bigger. If we zoom in 800%, maybe it's a tiny bit sharper, but it's pretty much a tie. But if we look in the corners, the 50 is actually a little bit sharper. And the less expensive lens actually won our contrast test by a pretty big margin. So overall, we like the less expensive, newer 50 F1.8 better than the old Zeiss.
This is the Samyang 45mm f1.8, and my favorite thing about this lens is it's really nice and light and small. It'd be a really great travel lens. It's $300 to $400, and so that's not too bad. You're not going to break the bank. It's not as good as the Sony version of this lens, and that's one of the reasons that we put it at number 8. It's not ranked very high. It's not super sharp, but it's a good all-around lens if you're going to be traveling and you want something light. If you're going to put it on the Sony A7C and you just want a portable setup.
But the autofocus is what frustrated me the most. Like, moving subjects, forget it. Not great, but even still subjects, I found it hunted in and out more than other lenses did, and for that reason, it wasn't that much fun for me to use. At number 7, a lens I actually would recommend for portrait shooters on a budget. This is the Rokinon or Samyang 50mm f1.4 Mark II. It might be known as either Rokinon or Samyang. We found the center sharpness to be really good, but the edge sharpness really bad, which is why I wouldn't recommend it for general photography.
And this is another one where the bokeh balls weren't as big as you would think that they would be, so it should be letting in more light at f1.4. It should have the bigger bokeh balls, but we're not really seeing that.
Yeah, so don't buy it for subject separation, but you should get it for low light performance because it will be significantly faster than an f1.8 lens. At the price of $540 new, this is about the least expensive 50 f1.4 that you could buy. And for that reason, it is the right lens for some, but we do have some lenses we like a little more coming up. At
number 6, we have the Sony 50mm f1.8. This one's nice and light too. And you know what? It's $250, but you can get it for $200 at KEH right now. This thing did not win any of the comparisons, but it didn't lose them either. It's a good, solid lens. If you're looking for your first 50mm and you want one that doesn't cost a lot of money, I would recommend grabbing this right now while you can. It also performed better with the autofocus than any of the third-party lenses that we tested. So the autofocus is not the best, but again, it's better than the third-party lenses. This is a average lens, as you probably hear I'm saying. It's in the middle, it works pretty well. You're gonna get decent photos, but it's not the best at anything. Before we get to our next lenses, I wanted to thank our sponsor KEH for not only making this video possible, but for making it easy and fun to buy used gear and to sell used gear too. That's where we sell all of our gear now because it's easy and it's predictable and it's safe. No more stolen stuff.
Yeah, we got to try out all these lenses because I know I can buy them and just resell them to KEH, and that's a bunch of these lenses are going back to KEH except for my favorite.
If you want to sell your old gear and buy gear that's new to you, you can go to KEH, find something that you like, and use the coupon codes that they gave us to save 5% on your purchase and get a 5% bonus towards anything that you're selling. So go to KEH.com, check out our links in the description down below. Thanks, KEH. At numbers 4 and 5, we have these two Sigma lenses, the 50mm f1.4. They're about the same price, right? They're like $800 and $850.
Yeah, one is the DG and one is the DG-DN. The DN means it was designed for mirrorless, and that made it just a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, and overall they're pretty similar optically, so I'll set aside the older DSLR designed lens and focus on this. For $800 or $850, the image quality of this is pretty much indistinguishable from the more expensive $1,300 Sony 50mm f1.4. It won in some ways, it lost in some other ways, but the reason it didn't beat the Sony 50 f1.4 is really the sports performance. The third-party lenses can't really keep up with the Sony lenses for a couple of reasons. For one, Sony has really fast autofocus motors, but the second thing is kind of a rigged game. On the Sony A1 we used to test it, Sony limits the performance of the third-party lenses to 15 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second. Still, that's a real concern if you are shooting with an A9 or an A1 for sports, and these are frequently used as sports lenses, and for that reason, this gets still very respectable number 4.
At number 3, we have the Sony 50mm f2.5 curveball, and this is expensive. It's $600, but this is such a fun little lens. This is such a cutie pie.
Yeah, I really do like that lens.
It's just so cute, look. You're so cute, you're so cute, you're so cute. I love the design of it. It has this nice clicky aperture ring. It's small, it's almost a pancake lens. It's very light. It would be so easy to bring with you anywhere. And not only that, it's incredibly sharp. The autofocus is super fast. Because it's f2.5, it's not going to let in as much light. You're not going to get as much subject separation, and the bokeh balls won't be as exaggerated, but it's sharp, it's fast, it's small, it's light, it's cute. It's got a lot going on.
The sharpness versus the $2,000 f1.2 lens. The f1.2 lens is a little bit sharper, but it's also more than 3 times the price. This is great.
The best travel lens here for sure. But there were 2 above it, and these are so close together. It's really hard for me to call one of them a winner. They are the Sony 50mm f1.4 GM, brand new, and the Sony 50mm f1.2 GM. The f1.4, well, lets in third of a stop, half a stop less light, but it's also significantly lighter and just a little smaller. But we've been using the f1.2 now since it was launched as like our main 50mm, and I've never minded carrying it around, so it's not a huge advantage. The 50 f1.4 was like pretty similar sharpness in the center, but not quite as sharp at the edges. The real reason you want the 50 f1.2 is going to be for the extra bokeh. If you want that extra background separation, or you want just the very cleanest handheld images in low light you can possibly get, this does both of those things. But still, it's $2,000 instead of $1,300. And you have to ask yourself if that extra $700 will produce results that anybody will really notice. I think unless you're a perfectionist, I'm going to push everybody over to the 50 f1.4. But me, myself, I'm kind of a perfectionist.
Yeah, but you really use bokeh and background blur as a compositional tool because you like subject separation, and that's a part of your personal style. So this will have to be a choice that you make based on what works for you.
And if you are shooting sports, you get about 1/3 more sharp shots with the 50 f1.2. I think the focusing motors are just a little bit faster than the 50 f1.4. Something to consider if you're using an A1.
Which one of these is your favorite? Because I'm loving this f2.5 actually.
Yeah, I kind of want that one and the f1.2. Use this one for travel and fun, and use the f1.2 for work, really.
For work, for fun. Tell us which one's your favorite down below. If you own any of these, if there's any drawbacks we didn't cover or any pros that we didn't cover, we definitely want to know.
And if we missed a lens, tell us, and we will redo all of this again.
We'll start all over just for you. And thank you, KEH, again for making this possible. Go to KEH and find yourself the gear of your dreams. You can get 5% off with the coupons in our description, or you can get a 5% bonus towards anything you sell. What's next? What lineup should we cover after this? All the lenses for Nikon? Let us know.
Bye.